All right, so the USC Trojans lost this weekend to Utah in the last play of the game, 34-32. This is now the third time that Lincoln Riley has lost to Utah. And I think there's going to be a lot of USC fans this week asking the questions that need to be asked this time about Lincoln Riley. And quite frankly, we need to start asking the question, is Lincoln Riley a failure as a head coach? But guys, before we dive into it, before we talk about it, I need to hear from y'all. So go ahead, jump down in the comments below, give me your thoughts, and then we're going to get to normal housekeeping, right? Hit that like, hit that subscribe button. Helps me out, helps me know you guys like content like this. But we're going to recap this USC and Utah game before we really get into Lincoln Riley. In Utah this week, man, this was the game where you thought USC is going to bounce back. It's in the Coliseum. Utah, they're on their third-string quarterback. This dude used to be a walk-on. They don't have Cam Rising. They didn't have their starting tight end. I believe they were out another key offensive player. Utah just didn't have it going for them in this game in terms of personnel. But Utah said, no. We're going to walk out of the Coliseum 6-1 for our matchup with Oregon next Saturday at 2:30 on Fox. Utah said, we're going to let the world know who we are because we're going to beat USC in the Coliseum. And yeah, I mean, this really comes down to Utah did exactly what we said they needed to do. They were the more physical team in this game. They controlled the clock. They won the time of possession by almost 9 minutes. They had 23 first downs compared to USC's 18. They didn't win the turnover battle. It was 1-1. You saw Utah put up 482 yards of total offense, which is more than I thought they would have. You saw USC put up 401, and you are really asking this question about USC and Lincoln Riley, and you're asking what's wrong. Because, guys, this Utah team, like, they shouldn't be this good. You have a safety in Soyon, I believe I'm saying that right, Soyon Vakai, who is playing running back, and he's playing receiver. And by the way, he had 5 catches for 149 yards, average of 29.8 a catch, 2 touchdowns. Then he had 9 carries for 68 yards for a 7.6 yard average per carry. Not to mention Bryson Barnes, that Utah quarterback that was a walk-on, third stringer, went out there, 235 yards on 14 of 23 attempts, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. I mean, you look at what Caleb did. Do I dare say he played better than Caleb Williams, who was 24-34, 256, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions for a lot of people thought was the Heisman front runner? And at this point, you would believe Caleb Williams might have played himself out of the Heisman talk. This might now be a close matchup of J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix, Dylan Gabriel. 4 quarterbacks that play well. Now, Michael Penix didn't have his best game. But USC, man, they never fail to disappoint. And I'm not going to say USC. Lincoln Riley does never fail to disappoint. This is where we're going to transition a little bit. Is Lincoln Riley a failure? And I'm going to say yes. As a head coach, it hasn't been the prettiest. And you see him make the same mistakes over and over and over and over again. Not to mention, he doesn't go out there and hire a true, real defensive coordinator that doesn't want to shed 20, 30 pounds off his defensive lineman to get him under 300 pounds so that he can run a speed D. It doesn't work. And you really feel like Lincoln Riley would have learned his lesson when he left Oklahoma. I didn't expect him to take Alex Grinch with him. When I found out he was taking Alex Grinch with him, I said, well, this is going to be the same Lincoln Riley that we saw at Oklahoma. However, I looked at this USC team, and I looked at Alex Grinch, and I said, they're going to have a really good defense, throughout the entire regular season, maybe even through the conference championship game. And then they're going to go to the playoffs every year, and they're going to get mollywopped because they're going to be fake. Because the Pac-12, it's the Pac-12. Anybody, I mean, if you guys remember, Alex Grinch used to be at Washington State, and he had like a top 30 defense every year, or top 35 defense every year at Washington State, the Pac-12. That's how I came up to that assumption. But man, was I dead wrong. Because USC's got the 107th defense in the country. And I don't want to hear, oh, well, he needs more time to get his players in. Well, if he needed more time to get his players in, then he would have been able to do that at Oklahoma. And I get it. He had Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy, a 5-star defensive lineman, committed to Oklahoma. But you're telling me that in the year that Jimbo recruited the best defensive line class that I think we've seen in the modern era, he recruited the best recruiting class we've seen in the modern era, that he wasn't going to flip Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy from Alex Grinch and Lincoln Riley that year? Come on. But when I look at what Lincoln Riley has done as a head coach, and this is by no knock on Lincoln Riley, he's a better offensive coordinator than he is a head coach. He is not a CEO. I don't feel like he is the leader that needs to be leading these young men as a head coach week in, week out. He is a great offensive mind, and I think if you put Lincoln Riley as an offensive coordinator, just solely focus on his quarterbacks and focus on that offense, and you had a head coach that was a defensive mind that hired his own defensive coordinator, or, kind of doing whatever Brent Venables is doing, with sharing duties with Ted Roof, you would have a national championship contending team every week. Even if Lincoln Riley hired a really good defensive coordinator and just said, you go do your own thing, recruit your own guys, I'm going to recruit my offense, you recruit your defense, you do what you want on the field, I'm going to do what I'm best at, USC might be a national championship contending team. And Oklahoma might have been a national championship contending team. And I tell you guys, I don't think this USC team is anywhere compared to some of the Oklahoma teams that he had. I mean, you look at the 2017 Oklahoma team where they lost to Georgia in the Rose Bowl. You look at the 2018 Kyler Murrays or the 2019 Jalen Hurts. Those were some really good offenses. 2 back-to-back Heisman winners, number 1 draft picks. And then Jalen Hurts, the Heisman runner-up, and then who eventually went in the second round of the draft. Here's my deal. Lincoln Riley doesn't learn from his mistakes. We were talking about this over at Ty's show at Around the Table Sports earlier, and we were talking about this USC loss to Utah. Because no matter how you look at it, it's egregious. You should not have lost this game. You shouldn't have allowed Utah to put up 34 points on you. Lincoln Riley in 2017 goes up against Georgia by, I think it was like 2 scores at halftime. And Oklahoma ends up losing that game because Lincoln Riley gets conservative. And you saw him do that again last night, where if you leave a running back in the game, you probably score again, which means you probably win. But instead, you take him out. Why? And then, I'm not even going to get into the quarterback situation there, but just know I think there's a deeper problem at USC than just Lincoln Riley and Alex Grinch. And we're talking about over at Ty's show, and I had to take my dog to the groomer in the middle of it, so I got some time to think about it. If you fire Alex Grinch, is that really going to fix the problem? And if you're a USC fan, I want you to be honest. Because Lincoln Riley fired Mike Stoops, and Alex Grinch is what we came up with. So, if you're USC, I think you got a couple options here. First option is you stick it out with what you got, and you know what you're going to get every year. A 9 to 10 win, maybe 11 win team, a team that will make the playoffs, but you're probably going to have a loss on your schedule every single year. Going to the Big Ten is not going to make it any easier. Or you can have Lincoln Riley move on from Alex Grinch, and you can hire the defensive coordinator, and you can tell Riley he's going to have to suck up it because you're paying him a bunch of money. and you want a winning football product. Because here's the deal. USC ain't filling up their stadium, guys. They didn't fill it up for this game, one of the biggest games of the season. So, third option is there's been a lot of rumors that Lincoln Riley will leave to the NFL. You let him walk. You hire Cliff Kingsbury for half the price. And maybe you pour a little bit more money than you should into poaching a defensive coordinator from somewhere else. And tell Cliff Kingsbury, this is what you got. Go turn this into a winning program. I guarantee you Cliff Kingsbury can hire, or he can recruit similarly to what Lincoln Riley's doing now, which, by the way, the recruiting game, that's a whole nother conversation. He said he couldn't do it at Oklahoma. Well, he ain't doing it at USC. He had a top 10 class last year. This year, he's got the number 19th overall class. If we look at just the decommits that he's had in this class alone, a total of 5 in the 2024 class. Aaron Butler, Dakota Fields, Monse Itelli, Dylan Williams, Jason Robinson. You go look at the 2023 decommits, Braxton Myers, Grant Bucky, Johnny Thompson. You go look at 2025. You have Anquan Fegans, Jet White. It's a total of 10 guys in 2 years that have decommitted from that program. And the idea that Lincoln Riley might be going to the NFL, well, guys, it might be a possibility. Because today, Inside USC is reporting that Lincoln Riley is under the weather and not making his weekly appearance on the Trojans live radio show today. And I'm sure you guys will see Oklahoma fans here in the chat, but they will tell you this just happened to Oklahoma. And Oklahoma almost lost that game that following week against Kansas, a game that they probably should have no business potentially losing. Just like this week, USC's playing Cal, a team they should have no business losing to. And then later that season, Lincoln Riley is off to another team. Coincidence? I think not. But guys, at the end of the day, I think Lincoln Riley, he's becoming a little bit of a failure as a head coach. Great offensive mind. Just not there as a head coach. That's okay. Not everybody's cut out for it. Not a CEO. But guys, I want to hear from you. I want to hear what y'all's thoughts are. If you haven't already, make sure you go ahead, jump down in the comments below, hit that like, and hit that subscribe button.